Om Parthaya Pradibodhidam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gradhidam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Mridavashinim Bhagavadim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambattva Manusantadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim. We bow down to the divine teacher, the Bhagavad Gita. It is the embodiment of the non-dualistic truth. Om, peace, peace, peace. So today is the last session of this series of classes. So we can be a free discussion on Bhagavad Gita, its philosophy, its relevance, its origin, how it came to be known as the universal scripture of Vedanta, all this. Say, any questions, any topics related to this that you would like me to discuss, most welcome. Anything. Or any individual verses, yes. Something. Yes. Yes, it comes in the 4th chapter of the text. Yada ida hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tad atmanam sujamyaham. This is the verse. The meaning is this, simple meaning. Whenever there is a degradation of dharma, when righteousness comes down and there is an increase in adharma, the evil increases, then I manifest myself taking the body of a human being as an embodiment. I embody myself for 3 purposes. Well, you can, in a way, you can say it's some kind of a promise on the part of God. God promises to humanity, mankind. The promise is this: whenever the balance of right and wrong gets upset, when the righteousness, higher spiritual, cultural values get degraded, and proportionately there is an increase of the evil, then God himself comes down as a human being. And 3 purposes are mentioned here. Sadhunam paritranaya, for the protection of those who follow righteousness, the path of righteousness, the path of dharma. And the destruction of those who violate the principles of dharma. Destruction need not necessarily mean violent killing, please don't mistake that way. It means to remedy the evil, to solve the problem. What's the problem? Sometimes ignorance is the evil. It has to be eradicated by knowledge. Sometimes, people mistake the right for the wrong and the wrong for the right. Then that mistake has to be cleared out like that. So, first, the protection of dharma and the protection of those who follow the path of dharma, righteousness, and then for either punishing or for the destruction of the evil, for remedying the problem of evil. And then again, for establishing an order of life based on dharma. For these 3 important purposes, I come down as a human being. Great modern Vedantic teachers like Vivekananda explains the mystery of great incarnations. Reincarnations could mean any great manifestation of the divine power. Maybe in certain cultures, in the Middle East culture, you can say the form of Jesus, for example, or Moses. In India, maybe Krishna, Rama, and so on. Like that. So they come down for preserving this order of dharma. What they do? Every great teacher has got two important purposes. This is mentioned in the commentary of Shankaracharya, and curiously, it was mentioned in one of the famous books of Arnold Toynbee when he speaks about the role of prophets in modern times. One is, a prophet stands at the junction of history. It brings forth the best from the past, and then he reinterprets. He gives it a new interpretation to make it relevant to his times or her times, the contemporary times, and then hands over to the next generation. So in a way, all great spiritual beings, spiritual personalities are incarnations. So this idea of the continuity of the universal moral order based on this spiritual mechanism which operates through this succession of teachers, spiritual teachers, who come from time to time in different cultures, in different nations, in different traditions, in different civilizations, who come down to this world, who embody and practice the ancient spiritual traditions and values, and then hand over to the next generation. Say, Mahatma Gandhi, who wrote a very famous, simple modern interpretation, not a scholarly interpretation, but a simple interpretation. Gandhi was not a scholar. Gandhi himself writes in the introduction on Asakti Yoga, Karma Yoga. So Gandhi says, in spiritual life, a great teacher comes, but he has to give a new manual. Say, in our own example, suppose there is a car. If you can't repair a Mercedes-Benz car, a modern car, using the manual of the old Model T or something like that. Model T covers in an old order, maybe 1930s. You take that manual, you can't make use of it for repairing a modern Mercedes or Rolls-Royce. For that, new manual is required. But then the principle of the mechanism of the car may be the same, but then it needs a new manual. The old wine should be poured in a new bottle. So all great spiritual teachers are new bottles, new brand names, but the wine remains the same. The essential spiritual truth remains the same, but these teachers come from time to time. So this verse is being commented upon by great traditional interpreters like Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, Madhva, and also by great modern thinkers like Schweitzer and Duisen, and also by great thinkers like Radhakrishnan, Aurobindo, and others. So it is a description of this mystery of great spiritual teachers appearing in all traditions and cultures and civilizations from time to time to give a new adjustment so that the spiritual culture is not lost once for all. I hope it's clear. So sloka, if you want to explain, the meaning is yada yada hi dharmasya. Dharmasya glani yada yada. I mean, whenever there is a glani means degradation, losing out. So whenever dharma gets lost, and consequently whenever its opposite, the evil, adharma, is on the ascent, then God himself comes down as an incarnation. And he gives a new interpretation and a new exposition to the eternal spiritual truths so that they will be understood by people of all times and all ages. That's the idea. Yes.
Follow-up question to that. So when you mentioned that at every point, new prophets come to this world. So based on our knowledge, if we think that new prophet is the one that we need to follow.
So the word prophet I use, it should be understood in a very general, spiritual teacher. That's the meaning in which that word should be clearly understood. Otherwise, there are problems. So, a prophet here means a great spiritual teacher, and there have been great spiritual teachers in all religions, in all cultures, in all traditions, even according to many modern historians and sociologists and anthropologists, even among the little known or unknown ancient civilizations, African or Native American cultures, there have been great spiritual teachers. So they all can be included in this category. Please continue.
So as long as we identify that in the spiritual leader and the message, and as long as we know that it is Dharma and the path of Dharma, that we are following the righteousness of this spiritual leader, then does that mean that we are on the right path?
Yes. In fact, the emergence of spiritual teachers in different traditions and cultures and nationalities from time to time, that mystery is being explained in this verse. So there's a promise that comes from God. In fact, this verse shows that spiritual tradition is universal. So any spiritual tradition which tends to be non-universal, which appears to be lopsided, interpreted in narrow language, narrow terms, cannot be true. That's the idea behind any great spiritual universal idea. Gita is so universal. Lord Krishna says, well, great spiritual truths and great spiritual teachers can emerge anywhere in the world. That's a greatness. Okay? Any other subject for discussion?
Kind of building off of that, the Bhagavad Gita is like kind of one of the most well-read Hindu scriptures today, more so than like the Vedas. And like one of the biggest contradictions is kind of this concept of did God reincarnate himself, or is it a Buddha, an enlightened soul that comes back to kind of restore Dharma? And so like what is that interpretation? Because like in the Rig Veda it says, God is omnipresent,
Yeah.
not visible, but yet is kind of behind the scenes. And then in the Bhagavad Gita, I come back in these forms, and as every time Dharma is unbalanced, I will return in its new form. It's kind of contradictory. So
Yes. Now, Bhagavad Gita is supposed to be the best commentary on Vedas. In fact, we read Gita today because a great teacher wrote a commentary on this work in 8th century, Shankaracharya. So he defined the place of Gita as Samasta Vedartha Sara Sangraha Bodham, which means the essence of all the great Vedic teachings embodied in a small work. That is Gita, according to him. So Gita is the greatest commentary on Vedic tradition, Vedic culture, and Vedic philosophy. Now, if you read Rig Veda, you find Rig Veda is not exclusively non-dualistic. It is not exclusively monotheistic or monistic. In fact, in Vedic literature, there are different levels of there's a gradual evolution in the concept of God that you find in the Rig Veda Samhita. There are many verses in the early part of the Rig Veda Samhita. There are many verses which are purely polytheistic. There are many verses that are pantheistic. Pantheism means equating the empirical universe with nature. With God. External nature, universe is equated with God. God is nature itself. That is the essence of pantheism. And polytheism means behind every natural phenomenon, there is a God, divine principle. And monotheism means there is an all-powerful, all-merciful creator God above everything. It's a monotheism. Monism means the ultimate reality is one universal principle. All these are found in Vedic literature. Vedas say that when we at the beginning of a spiritual life, we may look upon God as the grand, beautiful, sublime nature. And then when we go still further, when we grow in spiritual life, we can think of one supreme spiritual truth, a spiritual person who creates this world. When you reach the highest spiritual evolution, the highest level of spiritual evolution, you think of God as one divine universal principle, present everywhere. So there is no conflict between monotheism and this monism. That means as we grow in spiritual life, our idea of God also grows, evolves. That's why if we ask some people, they think God is living somewhere in a small place, a structure, a temple or a church. If you go to that place, a temple or a church or any place of worship, if you do some rituals, God is very happy. If you don't do that, He'll be terribly unhappy. Now, this idea of God is not wrong, but this is not the highest idea of God. As we grow in spiritual life, we can feel the presence of God everywhere, not necessarily in a temple or in a church or a place of worship, but everywhere. Spirituality becomes our nature. We become broad-minded. We'll be able to see the entire universe as an expression of the divine truth. So all these ideas are found in Rigveda Samhita, in Vedic literature. All these are found in Gita also. So in this particular verse, Gita takes the monotheistic position, where God promises to mankind. You find this in all traditional organized religious scriptures. God gives some promise to mankind. So here, in this particular verse, which is somewhat monotheistic in nature, God gives a promise to mankind. Well, whenever there is a need, I will come down as a protector of truth and righteousness, and as the one who destroys ignorance and falsehood. That's the idea behind. So we should remember very well, pluralism is not a curse. It is a virtue. Diversity of views is the beauty of every religion. If any religion says this is the only way, there is something wrong with that. Human beings are different, temperaments are different, behavior, all our attitudes are different. So we are all pilgrims moving towards one spiritual goal. We belong to different levels of evolution. Gita says everyone has got a chance, because God is one supreme truth towards which there are innumerable roads, paths that we can follow, depending upon our temperament. That is the essence of Gita. That's why Gita is so universal. There's one problem in religion that I would like to point out. We sometimes look for very simple, homogeneous definitions of God and religion. It is wrong. Actually, the greatness of a true religion should be that it could be interpreted in different ways depending upon our level of spiritual growth. If you define God as a person who sits somewhere with a strong iron determination, staring at what we do, closely observing what we are doing, with a heavy stick in his hand, ready to pounce upon us for the slightest error, that is not the idea of God. God is one supreme spiritual truth that we have to practice and experience in our life. That's why Gita says, there is a famous verse in the Gita which Swami Vivekananda referred to in his first Chicago address, which is supposed to be a great masterpiece of literature, and also which contains the essence of what we today understand, pluralism in religion. So Swamiji says, Ye thamam prabhadyante tam sathaiva bhajamika mama varma anuvartante manushya partha sarvasa. In the same chapter. Meaning is this: people in different places, in any nationality, culture, tradition, any continent, anywhere, belonging to different cultural, religious or traditions. If they are sincere, if they are honest, if they lead pure life, if they pray to God, they are praying to me. There, Krishna is the teacher of the Gita, but when he uses the word I, he doesn't mean one particular individual God, the supreme truth. So anybody, anywhere in the world, if the person is sincere, honest and truthful, if he or she prays to God, whatever may be that path that he adopts, he will reach his or her goal. Paths could be different, approaches could be different, but the goal is the same. Unity of goal and diversity of means, plurality of means, that is the essence of the teachings of Gita. So you have to remember, Gita in a way contains all possible, conceivable human definitions of God. If you want to look upon nature as God, you find verses in the Gita. You may sometimes modern thinkers who strongly uphold the view of traditional hermeneutics, a book should have just one view, one definite view. A book should clearly state what it wants to state. Simple. Religion is not like that. Human mind is not like that. Our temperaments are not like that. If you expect the whole 7 billion population, 7 billion people on the planet Earth to follow one religion, there's something wrong with that kind of religion. So, diversity of means. Truth is the same, but your approach may be different from my approach. Your path may be different from my path. If you say our path should be the same, it is not possible in religion, it is possible in mathematics. 2 plus 2 is 4 in mathematics for everyone, but not in religion. In religion, we evolve, we grow, we experience, and experience is never the same, never at the same level. So Gita gives for everyone, scope for everyone to grow and believe. That is the universality of Gita. That's why Vivekananda, modern thinkers like Vivekananda, defined Gita as a great classic of universal religion. Universal religion. Because you need not even believe in God. You'll be surprised. If you read Gita, you find Krishna doesn't insist that you should believe in a creator God. This is something maybe striking. If you read the Gita, and if you read the commentaries of two modern thinkers, one is Gandhi, the other is Vinoba. Vinoba was a great Sanskrit scholar, Gandhi was not. But you find they all insist that everyone should practice certain spiritual values like humanism, love, compassion, brotherhood, and so on. If all this we can practice, you can be a student of Gita. That's a very striking approach that you find in modern interpreters. I don't think there is any other religious classic about which we can make such a statement. But it doesn't mean that Gita is agnostic. No. Gita projects this high ideal of Godhead. But Gita also says that one should lead a very, very unselfish spiritual life. In fact, Vivekananda sums up the teachings of Vedanta embodied in the Gita in one sentence. Vivekananda is in a way the most modern and the most, I would say, rational exponent of the teachings of Gita in modern times. Now, he says that, referring to the Vedantic ideal of Gita, Swami Vivekananda says, you live your life, you lead your life in such a way that God will accept you even if you don't accept Him. That is Vivekananda made this statement in his inspired talks, which he a series of lectures and lessons he gave in America in Thousand Island Park. So it's so universal. At the same time, great men of modern times like Mahatma Gandhi were great students of Gita. And there are national reformers, social reformers who also believed in Gita, who studied Gita. People belonging to different religious traditions. That is universal approach of Gita. No, any other discussion? Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
First knowledge, then destruction of mind, then destruction of vasanas. In the Gita, we see that Arjuna doesn't take sannyas, he doesn't do manana and nididhyasana, he doesn't do these contemplative things. But then we're left at the end with, Nashtamohas, Vidivata, Tattvatamaya. So I guess my question is that when he says, like, Sudosmi Gatasamya, like I'm established in this godless experience, is that a result of actual dawn of knowledge, or is it just his surrender to God? Or what is that experience that the Gita ends with?
Yes, yes. I shall just take you towards this gradual evolution of Arjuna's mind. In the first chapter, if you look at Arjuna's mind, he was the most confused person. He talks the language of a man of renunciation, but he had come to the battlefield to fight, because his cousins, his enemies, and others, they took away everything and turned them to forests, turned them into beggars, into begging, and then he wanted to claim what was rightfully his, so that he came to the battlefield. So Arjuna was not a highly evolved spiritual person, the Arjuna whom you meet in the first chapter. That's why he laments, see, Dushtemam Sujanam Krishna and so on. And the first chapter ends with one important verse. Arjuna says, even if I die, I won't do my duty. Idimam apradigaram ashastram shastrapaneha dhatarashtaranekha anyus tanme kshemataram bhavet. Remember, this is Arjuna. Arjuna talks like an imbecile. So, here you have to remember, Arjuna was not a highly evolved man from a spiritual point of view. You will say, he was actually a bit of a hypocrite. We were practicing hypocrisy. Krishna used that term elsewhere in the fourth chapter. Second chapter, Krishna used word karmendriyani samyemme yaste manasasmaran indriyartha nimudhatma mithyacharaha sauchyate. Mithyachara means hypocrite. Now look here. Suppose Arjuna was a man like Gandhi or Buddha, Krishna would have congratulated him. But Arjuna was not a man like Gandhi or Buddha. He was not a man of renunciation. He was a very, very worldly minded person. And he was not willing to work hard. He was ready and he was eager to enjoy the pleasures of this world, but he was not willing to work for that. So what Krishna does is, Krishna asks Arjuna, look here, first you should shed your laziness, lethargy, and self-deception. Moha. So you get rid of your laziness, your ignorance, and you do work with an ambition. A lazy man, his first lesson should be to work hard, to justify his existence in this world. Otherwise, he will be parasite. So everyone should do what he's supposed to do, or she's supposed to do, to justify his existence on this planet Earth. Arjuna was not willing to do that. That is the first stage in the evolution of karma ideal, life ideal as a whole. That's the first thing Krishna does. Then Krishna tells him, look here, if you work with ambition, with a definite plan, and if you succeed in this material life, still you may not solve the problem, because highly successful people are not the happiest lot in this world. See, in the beginning of the second chapter, Krishna tells him, Bhayat, Ranat, Ubaradam, Mamsinde, Tvam, Maharadha. And there are 4 verses which Krishna repeats again and again. If you remain inactive, lazy and stupid and imbecile like this, you will become an object of contempt in this world. So that's the worst thing that anyone can have. Maranat adiruchade is worse than death. That's a word terms he uses. Akirtim chabi bhudani kadhaishindete avyam sambhavidasya chakirti maranat adiruchade. He says this is worse than death. You can imagine you are worse than dead. There's no greater insult that anyone could have. That is Arjuna's position. So Krishna tells, it's much better for you to be dead still without really dying, to work and be alive. So better do your duty. Not necessarily as a karma yogi. Do your duty as a duty to justify your existence in this world. Work hard with a plan, with a motive. That's why even Vivekananda in modern times stated that it's better to work hard with a strong motive and succeed in secular life than to be a hypocrite. In modern times, even many of the modern interpreters have put it that way. And then Krishna tells him, well, successful people who succeed in material life do not necessarily lead a happy life. So you must be able to do your work without any selfish motive. That will enable you to work and at the same time lead a happy life, because you won't suffer from anxiety, neurosis, depression or any other problems. So it's called karma yoga. So in the 49th, 50 and 50th verse, 48, 49, 50 and 50th verse, Krishna gives 2 definitions, the psychology of karma yoga and also the practice of karma yoga. Samattum yoga uchyade, remaining calm and quiet with a perfect tranquil mind even in the midst of activity. That is the meaning of the essence of yoga. And again, then Krishna asks him, if you get established in this karma yoga ideal, then you can live in this world. At the same time, you can work without becoming a worldly minded person. You can work in this world and lead an intelligent, happy life. When Arjuna listened to all these, what is the effect on his mind? If we come to the end of the book, you know what he did? Karishe vachanam tava. Tava vachanam karishe means I shall act according to your instruction. Krishna didn't ask Arjuna to go to forest. You know the reason? Arjuna was not fit to go to forests. That's the reason. Suppose Buddha or somebody else had put forward his problems before Krishna, he would ask you to go to forests. They were fit for that. Arjuna was a man of this world. Suppose somebody working hard in a stock exchange, he gets suddenly depressed, headache or something, maybe momentary problems which he could easily solve by getting some counseling from a psychiatrist. He say immediately, I want to go to forest and become a mendicant. Krishna won't ask him. He will ask him, no, you work hard in your office. But try to work hard without any selfish motive, with a detachment, with that detached mind. And practice your Vedantic wisdom along with your regular duty and responsibilities. That is exactly what Arjuna did at the end of the 18th chapter. He went back to his field of action. In fact, that is why Gita, remember, Gita is not a book that teaches you about mendicancy, about sannyasa alone. It teaches you what you need to practice. Gita is a book from which you get what we need depending upon our own state of mind. See, maybe the most classical example in modern times is Gandhi. Gandhi was not a monk, remember. Gandhi was a great politician, all the time mobilizing people against the British colonial rulers. Practically was a big nuisance to the politicians of those days. And he was a wise man. And he was turning to Gita for his solace and consolation. So how could he keep Gita on the one hand and then what the British call creating so much of nuisance for the British rulers? He was the one who unified the whole country under his banner and was a great example of what we call karma yoga, action without any selfish motive. For him, this was his manual. Vivekananda also held a copy of Gita in his hand when he traveled all over the world. And you find many people, housewives, reading Gita because they find children not studying well. They spend all the money for children education and they turn away against them. Sometimes they don't even take care of the parents or what. Such things happen. So for them also Gita is a book of consolation. So Gita is a book, is a universal spiritual classic. If a book teaches only the ideal of renunciation, it cannot have a universal appeal. For the great monks, for the highest, for those who have reached a higher level of spiritual evolution, those who do not want anything of this world, for them also Gita is a great guide in life. So Gita is a book that can be used for students, by people who are busy in their everyday life, by housewives, by mendicants, by all. That's why it is called a universal book. Veda contains all these ideas, and Gita is a very scientific and rational exposition of the Vedic philosophy of life. Yeah. In the Gita?
Yeah, when you said National monastic and then the Siddhosti Katasanya. These are kind of characteristics you would associate with the Jivan Mukta.
No. Jiva, I tell you, I can explain it. See, Jivan Mukta really means liberated souls who are living in this world. Jivan api muktaha, Jivan muktaha. See, the point is, though they are alive, they are liberated. So we sometimes wrongly associate spiritual liberation with the forest and hermitages. That is wrong. In fact, it was Shankaracharya himself who, for the first time in the history of Vedantic philosophy, expounded elaborately this ideal of living in this world, still remaining in a state of complete liberation. Jivan Mukti, this concept itself, was elaborately expounded by Shankaracharya in his commentaries on the Upanishads. Now look here, Nashto Moha. Now what Moha means? Delusion. Delusion means ignorance. What was Arjuna's ignorance? Arjuna had a problem. The problem was that he was not willing to do his duty. And what is the reason? Duty, performing one's daily duty responsibility, involves some problems. Not always pleasant. Duty is not always pleasant. Sometimes it is pleasant, sometimes it is very unpleasant. So when you're confronted with an unpleasant duty, if you feel like running away from that duty, that was Arjuna's problem. He was confronted with the problems of doing his duty, and he thought he can run away from his problems by running away from his duty. Krishna taught him, you cannot solve the problems by running away from your duty. You can solve the problem only by approaching duty from a different angle. Duty is not something that you can run away from. Duty is something that you should perform, but perform with a different approach. Instead of doing it with total selfishness and identification, you should do it with an unselfish approach. So that was the wisdom which Krishna gave to Arjuna. So his wrong notion, moha, was lost. Nashto moha. Moha nashtaha means my ignorance is now gone. Smriti labdha means I have got back my memory. Means I have got back. Suddenly, now I understand what is my work, what is my duty, because of your grace. And then what did he say? He didn't go to forest. Then he said, Karishe vachanam tava. Tat prasadar maya achyuta. Sthitosmi gata. Sthitosmi means, sthita means, I am now attained steadiness of wisdom. What is the steadiness? The steadiness that you find, that you associate with great men and women of action who led unselfish lives in this world, not necessarily those who ran away from this world in search of forest hermitages. Those who continued living in this world in the midst of their duties and responsibilities still did all their duty with total non-attachment. That was the steadiness which Arjuna was referring to. And that is what exactly he did. So that's the problem. So remember, sometimes we associate spiritual liberation with the forest or withdrawal from social obligations. Not necessarily. Some of the greatest men and women of liberation Vedantic literature refers to were men and women who lived in the midst of their household duties and responsibilities. They were great people who left the social obligations and became mendicants, but there were also equally great number of people who continued living in the midst of their social duties and obligations and still practiced Vedantic wisdom. It is this Vedantic wisdom which Krishna is referring to. If you can have this wisdom within, the wisdom that comes out of the practice of unselfishness, then you can be active 24 hours of the day, but still you can remain liberated. In fact, that is the mystery of the great spiritual teachers of the world. They were liberated, but they didn't vanish from society. Some of them did, but many of them continued living in the midst of this work. Vivekananda is supposed to be, there were many. In all cultures, there have been such people. So we often refer to them. See, they never remained quiet somewhere and vanished. They did something for others. So liberation should never be associated with the forest, withdrawal from social obligations, or negating the reality of life in this world. Our whole attitude changes. Our whole approach changes. That is the essence of wisdom. That's what Arjuna meant. Aham sthidaha asmi, means I am now enlightened. I have now attained steady wisdom. That's the meaning of the last part of the chapter, 18th chapter. Okay. Any other discussion from this side? Nothing from this side? Okay. Yes, Gita insists that niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jyayo hi akarmanaka. There is this verse in the Gita which says, the karma, what is karma? How do we decide what is our duty? Now, there are two approaches for this. One approach is very simple. A professor's duty is to teach, a doctor's duty is to treat patients, a lawyer's duty is to defend his client, whatever it is. These are all, of course, from a purely empirical, superficial point of view. But going deeper, you find we all know what is our duty. Every student knows that his or her duty is to study. And every farmer knows what is his duty. So there are certain duties and responsibilities that come to us. Rather, we go to them unsought, naturally. That duty is related to our own inner character. It is not necessarily based on birth or anything. But of course, position may be a determining factor in defining duty in modern times. Well, if you are a teacher, your duty is to teach by virtue of your profession. No doubt about it. So that duty should be performed with total dedication, enthusiasm, and thoroughness. At the same time, with an attitude of unselfishness or non-attachment. Non-attachment from a purely psychological point of view has got a great advantage. It helps you to be active at the same time, remain free from some of the problems related to duty, tension, stress, all these things. So, whatever may be your duty that comes to you by virtue of your position or your own natural growth or whatever it is, that duty should be performed. So, in a way, everyone knows what his or her duty is. I don't think there is anybody. Do you think a student needs to be taught that he should study or she should study? So, whatever may be that duty, that should be performed with thoroughness, at the same time, non-attachment. That's what Gita says. But please.
We tend to look at duty as something we do for others or away from ourselves. What is our duty to ourselves?
Yes. In fact, when we do our duty as a service to others, we are doing a great service to ourselves. Because when we try to project the welfare or the goodness of others in place of our own selfish motives, we are actually taking anxiety, stress, and many things away from our shoulders.
As long as you said the whole goal here was for one's own enlightenment and for the good.
Yes. So when you work for others' good, then duty becomes a tool, a means for our own spiritual liberation.
However, though one can go beyond that and become a martyr in some regard.
You find those who practice this kind of unselfish duty, working for others' good, slowly you find they start asking question, what is the end of, what is the ultimate goal, how am I going to be spiritually benefited? And you find slowly they start turning to scriptures. On the other hand, you don't find this among people who are always busy, worried about their own immediate, tangible benefits that come out of their work. They have no time to think of anything beyond. On the other hand, those who don't have time to think about themselves, they start slowly thinking about higher things. This is a natural evolution. You find this in the lives of many, many great philanthropists. It's a psychological phenomenon that we associate in the life of great philanthropists. In the beginning, they start doing good things for others, maybe for great name, for reputation. But slowly you find they start taking interest in higher spiritual values. There's a gradual evolution from practice of non-attachment and unselfishness to higher spiritual values. On the other hand, there are millions of people working day and night. They always worry about their what immediate material, sensual benefits they are going to get out of their work, their salary, money. So they have no time to think of anything higher. If, on the other hand, those who don't care for those things, only worried thinking about others, suddenly you find they start taking interest in higher spiritual, religious, ethical values.
So in that regard, the enlightenment
Exactly. This is a gradual evolution. This evolution, this change takes place without our being aware of it.
So
This,
it seems like this discussion then is mostly around the form of karma yoga and how that may lead others to the other yoga.
yeah. Technically, it is called karma yoga. Enables you to purify your mind. It enables you to attain a higher level of mental purity. Mental purity means getting rid of unpleasant, unselfish thought currents. We call vrittis within our own system. That slowly takes place when we start practicing non-attachment and unselfishness. We may worry. I can give an example. Well, suppose a big tornado or a tsunami takes place maybe in Philippines or some far-off islands, thousands of miles away from here. Now, many of us worry. We watching the TV screens, people start worrying, and many of them may send money to philanthropic organizations doing charity work in those places. But you don't go to your room and cry and weep unless you want to be certified. You don't do that. Just imagine, something happens, we are worried. So many lives are lost in a tsunami, all these earthquakes in Japan and many, unfortunately, these things do happen. And we worry. And many rich people, many philanthropists, they donate huge sums of money to charity organizations, and they conduct. And we are oh, what a tragedy. True, but we don't go and weep and cry. On the other hand, when our own distant cousins gets a serious health problem, that makes us worry and weep. If we don't do that, we'll be considered to be cruel. If parents lose their children, if they don't weep, it is a terrible sin not to weep. But here, when thousands of people die in a far-off island, we don't weep and cry. Why? We worry, but we worry with a different approach, different angle. Now, what's the difference? When somebody close to our own relation, then we identify. There is what we call, he's my cousin, my brother, my parents, and all that. So that upsets our mind. I'm giving an example. Don't take the example beyond the immediate parameters of the example. It's a famous principle in similes and examples in poetics, in prosody, and also in philosophy. So examples are to be taken as examples only. So the point is, so when something happens in our own life, we worry, we become anxious. That completely upsets the mind, brings about a total imbalance in our mental outlook. When the same thing happens in a much bigger scale to people who are far away, living far off islands, we worry, we also suffer, we feel the pain, but there is a difference. What's the difference? The difference is when something happens to our own people, those whom we consider to be our own, by blood relationship, it completely upsets the mind. When the same thing happens to other people, it doesn't upset the mind, but then we also feel the pain. So the problem is this, if we can do our duty, our responsibility, our day-to-day activities, if we can engage in our day-to-day activities with a non-attached mind, then it is very difficult to achieve. Remember, but that's the only solution to anxiety, neurosis, stress, and other related problems. Difficult to achieve, but not impossible at all. So, according to Gita, a great karma yogi is a person who can remove this line of bifurcation, differentiation between the others and ourselves, who can look upon everything and everybody about himself as the same, without any distinction. That will help us to look upon all our duties and responsibilities with a non-attached, unselfish mind. That will slowly take us to higher spiritual path. Because we need an ideal. Instead of our own selfish enjoyment, we project a higher ideal. Welfare of others. Doing good to others. And if we can enjoy, if we can derive an inner joy out of doing good for others, that is spirituality. Spirituality is nothing but the ability to enjoy, derive an inner joy when we do something for others. Its opposite is when we enjoy doing something for ourselves, it is not necessarily spirituality. When we do the same thing, when we enjoy, when we derive an inner joy, when we rejoice when we do something for others, it is spirituality. Vivekananda's definition is unselfishness is spirituality. He sums up the whole thing in one context, he says. And he says, selfishness is the root of all evil, all immorality, all unethical activities. And unselfishness is the essence of spirituality. In one context, he says, higher unselfishness is possible only from a spiritual point of view. That's the idea behind it. So, that's what Gita teaches. In fact, Arjuna learned this lesson at the end. Arjuna learned the lesson. He didn't go to the forest. He went back to the field of action. But he was a changed man. He was a transformed man. He got a new mind, a new ideal to work for. That was the change brought about by Krishna's instructions. That's the meaning of, now I have become free, now I am free from conflicts and doubts. That's the real meaning of Arjuna's statement at the end of the chapter, 18th chapter. So you find from a state of total imbecility and lethargy and laziness, inaction, Arjuna was brought to a level of action with unselfishness, action with non-attachment, without any attachment. That was the evolution that took place in Arjuna's mind. Remember, Gita is a book of not only Karma Yoga, it is a book of Vedanta. It contains the highest Vedanta philosophy. It contains the essence of Raja Yoga. It contains the essence of devotional philosophy, Bhakti Yoga, and many other things. I was just trying to point out one of the many important aspects of the teachings of Gita. That's all. So I want to tell a few things about the next class. There will not be class next Friday, October 3rd, because of a Durga Puja celebration the following day, Saturday, October 4th. Please remember, there will be no Friday scripture class next Friday because we have Durga Puja celebration on the following day, that is October 4th. The next class will be on Friday, October 10th at 7:30 p.m. And another important announcement, we are now concluding our discussion on the Gita. And at the request of some of our friends and devotees here, we will begin a discussion on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So, just a few words I would tell you. Today, you know very well, yoga is very popular. It's becoming more and more popular. That's a very happy thing, something that we can be happy about. So now, Patanjali was the great psychologist and also philosopher who introduced this concept of yoga for the first time. And he wrote his sutras. Sutras means aphorisms, pithy statements, not full sentences. Some of them are in the form of full sentences. Some of them are in the form of a few words put together. Some of them are in the form of phrases. So Patanjali wrote his Yoga Sutras, Yoga aphorisms. And he refers to Hatha Yoga, the physical exercise that is becoming very popular. Of course, Patanjali refers to this modern Hatha Yoga only once. He says, Sthira Sukham Asanam, just one statement. Out of that, later philosophers developed innumerable, thousands of yogic postures. A few hundreds of them later popularized by the great efforts of great yoga teachers like Swami Shivananda, who was the first great and maybe the greatest teacher of Hatha Yoga in modern times. He was himself a great medical practitioner, a great reputation. He was practicing in Malaysia at the beginning of 20th century. He left that job, became a monk, and became a great master of Hatha Yoga, yogic postures. And he wrote some very important books on Hatha Yoga and also higher yoga that we are going to discuss from next means from 14th, so from 10th October onwards, Friday 10th October onwards. So we are going to discuss Patanjali's yoga aphorisms, which gives a very scientific and rational analysis of human mind, the different problems that we confront in our life, not only in spiritual life, in everyday secular life, and how we can train our mind, channelize our mental energies towards creative channels. So it is supposed to be a very important topic. So it is both philosophical and much more psychological, because it deals with some of the inner problems of human mind. You'll be surprised to know Patanjali deals with many of the problems which are dealt with in modern books on psychiatry. Schizophrenia, phobia, melancholia, mano-depressive psychosis, anxiety, neurosis, all these problems you find Patanjali is dealing with. Of course, Patanjali doesn't elaborately deal with them. The commentaries written on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra by Vyasa and Bhoja. Vyasa's commentary called Vyasa Bhashyam, the commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and Bhoja's Smriti, smaller commentaries. And many other commentaries were written on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So we are going to discuss this very interesting subject from Friday, October the 10th onwards, here in same hall, same time. So those of you who are interested, you can also bring the English translation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Many translations, dozens of translations, English translations are available. Many of them are available in our own bookstore. And one of the most sublime and authentic interpretations of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra in modern times, in English language, came from Swami Vivekananda. You find the first chapter of the complete works, Swamiji gives an elaborate introduction to Patanjali's system of psychology and philosophy, and also very scientific and rational interpretation of these aphorisms. We have to remember, Swami Vivekananda was a great spiritual teacher, well versed in Sanskrit classics, and more than that, he was extremely well read, an authority on Western psychology, who met and had close interaction with William James, who was the eminent psychologist of America when he was traveling in India. And many of the monks of the Ramakrishna Order who worked in Germany and France, in England, during the early decades of 20th century, who taught Patanjali's system in European countries, came in contact with Adler and Jung. They're all rebellious students of Sigmund Freud, so I need not say anything further. So it is a very interesting topic. It's an ancient book, but it is much more modern than many modern books on psychology and philosophy. So we will start that discussion. Please remember, on Friday, October the 10th, 7:30, here in the same auditorium. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Om. Peace, peace, peace.